Welcome to the Baseball Insiders, the final Baseball Insiders stream before opening day 2025, unless you consider the Tokyo Series opening day, in which case I gotta say, good point. That actually, it's fair to consider that. But the opening day we all know and love is tomorrow, and so it is time for fan-sided MLB insider Robert Murray and I to give our last-minute predictions for the season, awards, standings, World Series. And Robert, as you can attest to, we have never been wrong before in the 2 years we have done this. Not a whiff, no mistakes, just accuracy.
That's exactly how it's gone. We have not had an inaccurate take, inaccurate prediction. It's all been coming to fruition, which we always love that. So I am anxious to spoil the entire 2025 season now, so you guys don't even have to watch it. Okay, maybe that's not exactly true, but we're going to give it our best try. Adam Weinrib, how are we doing? Happy Wednesday.
Whew, happy Wednesday, big Wednesday ahead of an even bigger Thursday. Yeah, I think it's still worth watching the season. I don't think we're going to spoil it to the extent that it makes it not worthwhile. Although, yeah, we're going to hope to nail this. We've had some, we've had some swings. We've had some foul tips in the past. We've also had some successes. Hopefully we nail more than we missed this time around. And if you want to yell at us about our predictions, you can find us in the Baseball Insiders Discord. All you have to do is subscribe and hit the join button below. Choose your tier, Rumor Miller All-Star, and then come on in there. We have a private Q&A with Robert every week and access to the two of us between shows in both of those tiers. Also recommend you subscribe to the Moonshot. That is our weekly baseball email newsletter from the fan-sided MLB team where Robert Murray and myself and a bunch of other great staff writers break down all the biggest stories in the big leagues with humor, insight, behind-the-scenes info. You can also find that on the Baseball Insiders feed on fansided.com. Fansided.com/baseball-insiders. Robert's columns and work are there. I write there as well. And some other great staffers combine the best of baseball and pop culture for an enjoyable experience. We also have a big opening day package coming out tomorrow that launches featuring Robert, featuring myself, featuring a whole lot of folks who crushed it. So highly recommend you check that out. We're going to get into the fun stuff in the meat in a little bit. But first, do want to talk about the one little piece of big news that may have rippled throughout the league yesterday. We got a Cal Raleigh extension before opening day and between shows as well. A deal that my immediate reaction is, wow, after Cal Raleigh sort of called the Mariners out for their lack of willingness to spend, it's surprising to see them agree at a midpoint that is so affordable and team friendly. But I don't know if this shows a newfound willingness for the team to go beyond, if this is going to stop them in future pursuits. Also, the price going up a little bit for Adley Rutschman, I would think. Maybe Logan O'Hoppe, maybe Francisco Alvarez, but certainly Adley. Want to get your thoughts and reaction to the Raleigh deal before we head into the regular season that will be.
Yeah, the Raleigh extension kind of caught me off guard. I wasn't necessarily expecting him to do that deal at this point. And I think if he had waited, he would have gotten a good amount more. But you can never complain about a guy getting a contract over $100 million and securing his future and his future kids' futures and their kids' futures. Like, I mean, you can't blame a guy for doing that. That's like generational wealth. But I was kind of surprised that he ended up doing that. But that being said, the bar has now been set. And as you said, for a guy like Adley Rutschman or even Logan O'Hoppe. And I would expect both of those. I don't think we're going to see extensions for either one, but especially O'Hoppe, because O'Hoppe is a very strong breakout candidate this year. Like, he's shown tremendous flashes. But this could be the year that he really breaks out. And if he does indeed do that, then we're looking at a very, very, very lucrative extension with the Angels if that time eventually comes with them. But they would have every reason to do so because he is their franchise catcher for sure. And the fact that they got him for Brandon Marsh remains a very strong deal overall. But I do like going back to the Raleigh extension here. I'll give the Mariners credit for extending him and spending that money because all offseason we've criticized them for not spending, especially me. I've been one of the more stronger voices, I think, in baseball media in criticizing the Mariners. But they spent here, so good job by them. But if I was a player, I may have waited a little bit.
I muted myself. Understood, but I do. I do. Yeah, I was only talking for about half a second before I realized that. But yeah, understood. Good take, but obviously generational wealth. Got to grab it. We see your questions. We will get into answering a few questions, but we do want to get to our predictions first, then open up the floor. And let's start with the MVP races, which I honestly got bored trying to predict this because we are in a world right now where predicting any alternative to Shohei Ohtani in the National League feels silly, especially as he's building back up to pitching. So I'm trying to get these right. I'm going to predict Shohei Ohtani. And in the American League, I just can't imagine Aaron Judge replicates that season from last year without Juan Soto. And you want to talk about fatigue. Nobody wants to give it to Aaron Judge 2 years in a row. So I'm predicting Witt Jr. and Ohtani to start. But I do have a feeling that a dark horse that nobody is predicting or envisioning will take one of these. Depends on where the fatigue is. So I'm going to throw out Alex Bregman and Bryce Harper. But I'm predicting the obvious, shoo-ins, 1 seeds for the awards. How about you?
I'm the exact same as you. I have Bobby Witt Jr. winning it in the American League, and then I have Shohei Ohtani winning it in the National League. But I'm going to give you 2. I don't think we can call them. Well, one of these guys you definitely cannot call a dark horse, but the other one I think you kind of can at this point. But my obvious one or non-dark horse one would be Fernando Tatis Jr. I think he could be in line for a really big season with San Diego. So see, Drew, I was on that first. I beat you by about 5 seconds, but we're good minds think alike right there. But my dark horse is Jackson Chourio with the Milwaukee Brewers. I think what we saw last year in the postseason from him, I think that was a sign of things to come. And the Brewers, they took some heat for extending him early, but they knew the player that they had there, and they identified it. They were aggressive in extending him. And that may have, when it's all said and done, saved them possibly $200 to $300 million. Like, that was a very wise extension for them. And I would not be surprised at all if that Jackson Chourio MVP hype began very early this season.
I believe it too. And he's probably the spring training MVP at this point, although I don't think you get hardware for that, but still noteworthy as we head into the season. Yeah,
maybe a hunk of metal. Yeah.
I think you might get a little. Yeah, look, if the World Series trophy is a hunk of metal, then I guess the spring training MVP trophy is like some wadded up chewing gum. But regardless, hey, you might get a little something for that. There's like a 50 double 28 homer Alex Bregman season that might be in there, and it might not be, but I'm putting my flag on that island just in case, and we'll obviously all predict the divisions and outcomes later, and maybe that factors into it a bit. AL Cy Young. I'm going to go Garrett Cole. No, just kidding. I went Cole Reagans last year, and I think that turned out well. He didn't win the Cy Young, but I didn't dislike the selection. He ended up being an all-star, being the number 1 or 2 starter on a playoff team. So cool. I'm gonna put my flag in a different sort of somewhat overlooked, underrated area here as well, and go with Pablo Lopez. Back-to-back AL Central picks. I think you have to go off the grid at some point if you want to make an impact here. And then the NL, I'll go with what everybody wants to see happen and say Paul Skenes makes the leap and has a full season and has the full ridiculous season that we're all hoping for. What about you?
Yeah, I think in the American League, I went with Garrett Crochet. And if I was a Red Sox, I would really be aggressive in trying to extend King. Or not King. You got me looking at your comments, Drew. Thanks a lot for that.
Drew, you blew it.
Yeah, but if I was a Red Sox, I'd be very aggressive in trying to extend Crochet. And I don't expect one to happen before opening day unless something really ends up changing here. But Crochet is my pick to win the American League Cy Young there. And if he does indeed do that, the price tag is going to keep going way up. In the National League, I really wanted to go with Paul Skenes, but I wanted to be slightly different than you. So I went with Zach Wheeler. He's been very dependable with the Philadelphia Phillies. A very strong option there with Philadelphia, who also lost Tyler Phillips today to the Miami Marlins. I don't know if that was a trade or a waiver claim or not. I was not given that information, but I know as a fact he is going to the Marlins. So at least we got that part of the story out. But Wheeler is my pick for the Cy Young in the National League. Yeah,
you were all over Tyler Phillips, who is not my pick for Cy Young in the National League, but I do hope he has a good year.
No ball, bozo. What the hell? How do you not have Tyler Phillips winning the Cy Young? What the heck?
Well, I couldn't put him on my prediction because I didn't know if he was going to land in the National or American League. So whatever league got Tyler Phillips, then yeah, he wins the Cy Young in that league. But I know where he was going to be.
No, valid. Also, I noticed like a theme here from Drew having the Padres players win MVP and Cy Young. I wonder who he's going to have for manager of the year.
Yeah. Rookie of the year, maybe we'll go with Jackson Merrill again as a sophomore. Who knows? We'll have to figure that out. Obviously Zach Wheeler, I think probably the most dominant and durable starting pitcher of last year. Not a bad pick at all. Just I want to see the Skenes supremacy rise. So I'm going to pick it and we'll see. But I agree with both of your picks as well. And in the American League, I am choosing a Rookie of the Year to prove that I am not biased. I'm a national baseball voice. I didn't choose against Garrett Crochet because I wanted to. I told you Alex Bregman's my dark horse AL MVP. So obviously I'm not anti-Red Sox here. I'm going to pick a Red Sox to win the Rookie of the Year, who isn't even on the opening day roster. Roman Anthony is going to come up soon enough to win the honor and block Masataka Yoshida, make that situation even weirder. But I think he's undeniable at this point and is going to start quickly. And in the National League, based on the way the Nationals handled their roster last year, they managed to limit Dylan Cruz's plate appearances just so that he could win the NL Rookie of the Year this year. I'm going Anthony in an upset because he's not on a roster. And Cruz, I think, in a bit of an upset over Sasaki and maybe the more popular choices. What about you?
Yeah, I'm right there with you on Dylan Cruz. I think you're very wise with that pick. That's no slight to Sasaki at all, but I think it's going to be a little bit of a learning curve for him to start the season. So Dodgers fans, be patient there. But I think a guy like Dylan Cruz is going to have a really nice year with the Nationals. But I'm going to go slightly different than you. And I feel like I have to go in this direction because I've been hyping him up all offseason. But Cam Smith with the Houston Astros is my pick to win the Rookie of the Year there. That video of him when he found out that he was making the opening day roster was pretty damn freaking sweet. And I'm really happy for him that he also had to have his family there. And he has all the potential in the world to be a really, really, really good player. And I think we're going to see that this year. So I have Cam Smith winning the Rookie of the Year for the American League.
I love it. I think it's a completely valid, assessment. Just had to pick against the grain a little bit. If that's how Cam Smith reacts when he makes the opening day roster, imagine how emotional he'll get when he wins a hunk of metal. So you just gotta hope that we get to see that, whether it's Rookie of the Year or whether it's a World Series championship. We actually didn't have Manager of the Year prepped here, but I do think it's probably worth touching base on Manager of the Year. And maybe I'll spoil one of my picks a little bit because in the National League, I cannot gravitate away from Terry Francona. And I'll give Alex Cora the nod in the American League, I believe, especially the narrative. Francona, you have a return narrative. Cora, you have everybody assumes he's gone at the end of 2024. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, there's a midsummer extension. And then Boston spends commensurate with that extension, gets him what he wants. And I don't know quite how far they're going to go, but I think they're going to have a big enough year and win the American League East. Spoiler alert to later predictions, that he does get that narrative nod. But I wonder whose thoughts, who you got going on here.
Yeah, but I got a sneeze attack coming, so I just want to warn you in case I have a bunch of sneezes coming. But in the National League, I have Tito winning it as well. I think he is going to make such a difference for the Reds, and absolutely makes them like a very strong candidate to win that division. And obviously, like we've seen a bunch of people either predict the Cubs or the Brewers, but I think you're spot on that the Reds should not be slept on. So I think that's a really smart pick, and that's why I have Tito winning the Manager of the Year in the National League. Dude, American League is tough. I think Cora is a good pick. I want to go with something different. I'm going to go with Stephen Vogt. I think he's a really good manager, and I could really see that team once again making a postseason run. So give me Stephen Vogt in the American League.
I think there's a good chance that 2 of the 3 finalists are upstart AL Central teams. Like I think any of those AL Central managers, if they have great seasons, are going to be involved. I love the Cora pick. You are sneezing. It's possible that you're allergic to the fact that I'm about to pick the Boston Red Sox to win the American League East, but I am. And I also don't see the alternative as being very appealing at this point in time. I don't understand the Orioles rotation, and I never have. The Yankees are hanging on for dear life. I think they're going to be better than a lot of people are claiming them to be right now, but I think I'd be foolish to pick them to win the American League East, given the number of things that have to go right for them to even make the playoffs. I mean, they have to get Jason Dominguez having a rookie of the year type season, and Austin Wells stepping up, and Anthony Volpe developing, and Will Warren becoming a viable starter, and Luis Gil coming back on time, and the bullpen finding 2 or 3 arms. Like, it could happen, and I think I have faith in certain elements more than others. And I am going to pick the Yankees to make the playoffs because I can't quit them right now. But I am not going to pick the Yankees to win the division. I have 3 AL East playoff teams: the Red Sox, Orioles, and Yankees. Twins coming out of the Central. Nice pick, Adam. Nice pick, dipshit. The one AL Central team that didn't make the playoffs last year, basically. But I think the Minnesota Twins, there's a reason Fangraphs projected them to have the best bullpen in the major leagues this year. And I think that is going to be a huge factor when they will undoubtedly be playing razor-thin games against KC, Cleveland, and Detroit. And I didn't love Detroit's half measures this offseason and the injury issues they're already dealing with. Wenzel Perez going on the IL yesterday. So Minnesota in a slight upset there. Rangers to win the West, and I can't quit the Astros. They're still good until proven terrible, so I'm going to send them in as my final wild card, and Cam Smith's going to be a big part of that. What do you got?
So we have a bunch of similarities, but I'm going to address the biggest difference that we have here. I have the Yankees missing the playoffs in general, and that could make me look really stupid, but I think things are not trending in a very good direction here. The Yankees, what they have going for them is a manager who can keep that clubhouse calm and can navigate this. I'm an Aaron Boone fan. I know there's people in the Yankees fandom who probably do not agree with that, but he's a good manager, and if there's anyone who can help them navigate this, it's going to be Boone. But they just have so much to overcome. All the pitching injuries, obviously, like Garrett Cole's injury, that's devastating in every sense of the imagination here. Giancarlo Stanton and the questions surrounding him, obviously losing Juan Soto. Just there's so many questions entering the season for that team, and I just think it's going to be too much for them to overcome. But I do have the Red Sox winning that division. I also have the Orioles making it to the playoffs in that division, and then also I have the Twins making it. I have the Rangers making it, the Astros, and then my final team making it was the Kansas City Royals. They, to me, have a team that really looks good here. They have young pieces. They've surrounded Bobby Witt Jr. with some really good talent as well. I give that ownership in the front office the credit for spending and getting that team to a spot where they can actually seriously contend here. And I wouldn't be surprised if the Royals ended up winning a postseason series or two. They to me are, I don't want to say they're being overlooked, but they are being overlooked. That's exactly what they are. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll say it if you want. Excluding them was my toughest cut, and I honestly just did it because I wanted to put the Yankees in my postseason picks. But picking against them is completely reasonable at this point. It would take a lot of reversals and best case scenarios for them to make the postseason. They'd have to nail the trade deadline, which they have not done lately. Brian Cashman transitioning into a president of baseball operations emeritus wouldn't be the worst idea in the world. Maybe everything goes wrong. Maybe that happens. But I do think I can't quit them quite yet. But I definitely have them as the final wild card team and the last team sneaking into the field, in my opinion here. And I did pick Witt Jr. to win the MVP. So, none of this aligns. But Cleveland losing Naylor, Cleveland losing Jimenez, Cleveland intentionally somewhat taking steps back. They're never going to be bad. They are never bad. But I just feel like, I think in my, look, take off the bias hat. I could kick the Yankees out of the playoffs, put the Royals in, put Cleveland like a game or two out. That feels realistic. But I gotta give the Yankees a little bit of love here, coming off a World Series berth. And if it makes me look foolish, I mean, again, my prediction is they're the last team in the American League field, like North Carolina in March Madness. I don't think that's being too generous to them, but we will certainly see. What about the National League? I'm going to give you the floor first here because I just monologued for no reason. Who do you have in the National League playoff field?
So I'll start in the National League East. I have the Philadelphia Phillies winning that division. I think that team, they obviously have questions with the rotation, but you can't knock their core. And having Zach Wheeler lead that rotation, then you have Bryce Harper, Trey Turner, Kyle Schwarber. You still have Castellanos coming back, and you got some other pieces there. That to me is the team to beat in that division. But I also have the Braves making it out of that division, and also the Mets as well. And it was really tough for me to not have the Mets winning that division. but I just am really high on what the Phillies have there. So I went with Philadelphia to win the National League East. In the National League Central, you had me very much thinking about this during the show, Adam. So I want to give you that. The Reds made a very a strong push in my mind. So I want to give you your props there, but I'm sticking with the Brewers. I'm not going to be doubting Pat Murphy and that team. They have Christian Yelich coming back, and word is he's healthy and he's doing great, and they're really happy with where he is. But I expect Jackson Chourio to take a major leap forward, and his offense is good. His defense is much improved compared to what it was at this point last year. Their pitching always seems to find a way to just be really good. So give me the Brewers there in that division. And then in the National League West, I'm going to keep this short and sweet. The Dodgers are going to win that division, but I also have the Padres making it, and I would not be surprised if that team makes some noise in the postseason as well. They've got pieces to make it happen. But Adam, I am curious, where are you at?
I hope that the Padres make some noise. I do not have them in my playoff field. I will go with the Braves in the East. And much like my American League East picks, I'm throwing in 2 additional East teams in the postseason in the Phillies and Mets. I can't be convinced that this Mets rotation, you can give them all the lab magic in the world, that they are going to hold up as much as they have to. The Mets last year had the most exciting singular Mets season of my time on earth in terms of things going in their direction, in terms of unexpected stars emerging. And some of that is good coaching, and some of that is shrewd GM work, and some of that is pure flat out luck. Now, adding Juan Soto mitigates that significantly, not just somewhat. There's no bigger addition in the world. So I have the Mets in the postseason, but I can't foresee them streaking the same way they did last year, when, by the way, they did not win the NL East. So in that incredible lucky season that really I think Mets fans are ultimately going to wish ended in a World Series because of how hard it is to do what they did, and hit on 18 different times and get blackjack. I am going to send them to the postseason. I think that's a special core, but I'm not sure if the pitching holds up over the course of the regular season. They need to get that right before a short series. Braves, Phillies, Mets, Reds in the NL Central. The Brewers are my number one regret here, in the same way that the Royals were my number one regret. But I had to go against the grain a bit, and I know that there have already been injuries suffered by the Reds. Austin Hayes hit the IL today, Andrew Abbott out of the rotation. But there's some high-level arms they can go to in case of emergency. Like Chase Burns could be ready sooner rather than later. I want to see what Rhett Lauder does. I just think the Matt McClain, Ellie De La Cruz, Terry Francona triumvirate cannot be underestimated. I think I picked the Reds to make a major leap last year, and they didn't, because I think failures in the clubhouse and a cavalcade of injuries. I think this year they put together the ingredients that I was looking for them to put together last year. Although, yes, Milwaukee has been relatively undeniable in the regular season. There is a chance that Chourio becomes a megastar this year, which would change that a bit. But for now, going with the Reds, Dodgers in the West, and the Arizona Diamondbacks, who have such a good rotation that they shoved Jordan Montgomery to the bullpen before he succumbed to Tommy John surgery, which sucks. But I love the Diamondbacks. I loved them last year. I thought they were the best team in the National League for a month and a half stretch, and they didn't even make the playoffs. I don't think Corbin Carroll does what he did last year again. I think he's better. I think he's forgotten these days, and I'm going to go ahead and throw the Diamondbacks into the playoffs as my final seed, as my 6. I think the Phillies and Mets are 4 or 5.
Yeah, I want to talk about the Diamondbacks for a second, because I think that was a really smart pick by you, and that was one that I struggled with as well. But what I'll talk about here is what happened with Jordan Montgomery, because someone asked about it earlier in the show, but that is that's a tough situation there overall for the Diamondbacks. And what happened with Ken Kendrick's comments to start the offseason, and then all of a sudden they're shopping him all offseason, and they're holding out for the most value that they can. And then all of a sudden he gets hurt, gets an MRI, and he needs Tommy John surgery. He's lost for the season, and now that contract and player overall is untradeable. And that is about as bad as it gets. That is a doomsday scenario there for the Diamondbacks. And that's the risk that they took in holding on to him and waiting for that value. And now they got to wear that one. And how exactly they'll navigate that injury remains to be seen, because they were relying on him for innings this year, and they're obviously not going to get anything from him. He's going to be out for a portion of next season, most likely as well. So that's just overall a really bad injury. And going back to his free agency, that was one of Scott Boras's biggest missed opportunities there. Yeah, and that there was a reason why he ended up moving on from Boras after that free agency. He was very vocal about that afterwards as well. And you got to wonder just how much that free agency ultimately ended up costing him, and also cost the Diamondbacks in the end as well.
Significantly, and a huge blow, like you said, but also just, a huge failure of operations that dates all the way back to well before last year. The Boras 4 member who got it the worst, and we feel terrible for Jordan Montgomery. World Series picks. You can call me an idiot on this one, everybody. Comment section. I know a team that maybe shouldn't even be in the playoffs is in here. I picked the Dodgers over the Houston Astros, not the Yankees. I would never do that. I understand the step back. I understand Jose Altuve is playing left field. Again, I'm not sure about a single member of the playoff field, and the Texas Rangers rotation scares me. The Boston Red Sox seem to be the best positioned here to make the World Series out of the American League, but I'm going to give it to the Astros and say that their experience gives them the edge over Boston. I think Christian Walker also going to have a huge year. So Astros over Red Sox in the ALCS for me, Dodgers over Astros in the World Series.
So we have at least one similarity with our World Series prediction. And Drew, you were spot on about your guess before in the comments. I am indeed going with the Los Angeles Dodgers to once again repeat as World Series champions. That team to me just is too good to be taken down into 7-game series. So give me the Dodgers over the Boston Red Sox. And I've been talking to a lot of folks who have connections with the Red Sox, or just even Red Sox fans in general. There's a lot of optimism entering this year, and rightfully so. I mean, you add a guy like Alex Bregman, you trade for Garrett Crochet, you sign Walker Buehler, you make some of these other additions as well. You have a really strong foundation there. The piece that scares me a little bit, though, is Aroldis Chapman in the late innings, maybe even in the closer spot there. That feels like a spot that's going to get addressed at some point around the trade deadline. But give me the Boston Red Sox, because I'm a really strong believer in what they're building there. And I'm also just a massive fan of Alex Cora.
Yeah, and I am not, but I do think that they could easily make that run. And the Boston Red Sox have never lost a World Series during my lifetime. So if they were to make it and lose to the Dodgers, that would be something I've never seen before. I'd be hesitant in picking against them if they were to ride that momentum into a fall classic. But we will get there when we get there. That's what we got. What you like, what you don't like, let us know. Please reach out. Tell us if you see something in the predictions that you disagree with. I think it's probably going to be mostly Yankee based, or people who are just upset that we picked the Dodgers, but I don't know how you pick against them at this point. They might not win the World Series for sure. Many stranger things have happened, but if you're making offseason picks before opening day, you got to go with them. They also have a 2-game head start. They're already undefeated and 2-0. So, off to a red hot beginning out there in the NL West.
No, for sure. And then also my big bold prediction for this entire season is that we have a Hunter Miser just crash off for 162 games. I think he's going to be in for a rough season if the Discord is any indication there. So wanted to give Hunter some love, because his crash out in the Discord was generational, and maybe the biggest temper tantrum that baseball has ever seen.
I would agree with that. Hopefully I don't end up equaling that when we see how the Yankee season actually unfolds. One more question that came from the Discord before we sign off. There is, and it's mentioned in the comments here as well, there is a last-second circulating tweet from Mike Rodriguez, who we talked about on this show a bit, about Toronto and Vlad Jr. doing, quote, everything they can to reach an agreement before opening day, and they were in discussions today. You and I were both confused by the optimism coming out of Toronto the last time that we spoke. But I think anything else coming from Toronto's camp that justifies their Vlad Jr. optimism from your side of things, or are we still sort of flying blind here as we head towards the opener?
So that, to me, is the only way that this makes sense, or the optimism from the Blue Jays makes sense, is if talks have been rekindled. Because if they're dead and they're not talking, then that optimism would not be warranted. As far as what I can tell you on my end, I am getting ghosted. I don't have any new intel on that whatsoever. So maybe there is something going on. Maybe there isn't. I don't know. But it's silence from Toronto. So that's all I can tell you, at least as far as this point for me.
Okay, good to know. Appreciate the question, of course. Thanks for checking in. And hey, everybody, thanks for joining us. You can find us in the Discord if you want to debate our picks, scream at us, or just compliment us, which doesn't happen enough. People should be nicer to us. We're your friends. We like you. Yes, you, even Red Sox fans. We do like you. I am Adam Weinrib. That's my Twitter handle. If you want to yell at me, people do. Robert Murray, thank you so much for joining us today and every day. We will not be live on Friday. Hope everyone enjoys their opening day. If you want to get in touch with Robert and myself tomorrow, join us in the Discord. Seriously, we would love to hear from you. We can have a private Q&A as well at opening day festivities. Tomorrow should be a big day. I
guess we got some. According to our source, I'll reveal my source on this one. Our producer Joanne. Apparently, we should be live on Friday. So that is. Oh yeah, I guess that was maybe a miscommunication. So shout out to Joanne for that. But yeah, show on Friday.
All right. I will not be here Friday, sadly, so I won't be live. But we will see everybody. Please join us again, Baseball Insiders, 3:30 Eastern Time on Friday. And until then, take care, everybody. We will catch you next time we are live. Hit that subscribe bell, turn those notifications on, and we would love to have you back here. Thank you. Happy opening day.
Thank you, everybody.